It was a busy Monday morning at the Atlanta International Airport. People were rushing, flights were boarding, and the usual noise of rolling suitcases filled the air. Among the passengers boarding Flight 237 to New York was a woman named Linda Parker, a 52-year-old business executive, well-dressed and sharp-tongued. She always believed she was better than others, especially people who didn't look like her. As she approached her seat, she stopped abruptly, her face twisting in disgust. Sitting in the seat beside hers was a tall, calm black man reading a book. "Excuse me, there must be a mistake," she snapped at the flight attendant. "I can't sit here." The flight attendant, a young woman named Elena, blinked in confusion. "I'm sorry, ma'am, this is seat 14B, right? That's what's printed on your ticket." "Yes, but I can't sit next to him," Linda hissed, lowering her voice but not enough to hide the venom. "Find me another seat, preferably somewhere more appropriate." The black man slowly looked up from his book. He didn't say a word, but his expression showed a mix of patience and quiet disappointment. "Ma'am," Elena replied gently, "there are no empty seats. Everyone paid for their tickets. Please take your seat so we can depart." Linda crossed her arms defiantly. "No. I will not sit beside him. You don't understand who I am." Passengers nearby began whispering. A man across the aisle started recording with his phone. The air grew tense. Finally, the captain himself walked down the aisle. Captain David Reynolds, a seasoned pilot with decades of experience, asked, "Is there a problem here?" Linda immediately pointed at the man beside her. "Yes, this man is sitting in my row. I demand to be moved." The captain took a deep breath. "Ma'am, this passenger has done nothing wrong. If you refuse to sit down, you'll delay the flight for everyone." "Then delay it," she barked. "I'm not sitting next to him. I paid for comfort, not enough," the captain interrupted, his voice firm. "Ma'am, your behavior is discriminatory and against airline policy. Please take your seat now or you'll be escorted off the plane." The black man still hadn't spoken. He simply closed his book, looked out the window, and remained calm. Linda sneered, "Go ahead. Arrest me, if that's what it takes." The captain nodded once. Within moments, 2 airport security officers entered the cabin. "Ma'am," one officer said, "please step off the plane with us." Her face went pale. "What? You can't be serious. I'm the victim here. You're being removed for refusing to comply with crew instructions and for discriminatory conduct," the officer explained. As the entire cabin watched, Linda was escorted out, her protests echoing down the aisle. The passengers broke into quiet applause, and someone called out, "Good riddance." The flight attendant turned to the man. "Sir, I'm so sorry you had to experience that." He smiled softly. "It's all right. Thank you for handling it professionally." As she looked down at his book, she noticed the title, Leadership Under Pressure by Marcus J. Hayes. Her eyes widened slightly. "Wait, are you Dr. Marcus Hayes? The motivational speaker?" He nodded politely. "That's me." By the time the flight landed in New York, the video of the incident had already gone viral. Millions watched as the woman who thought she was above others was led away in handcuffs. Later that day, airport police released a statement confirming that Linda Parker had been arrested for disorderly conduct and harassment. The airline permanently banned her from future flights. Meanwhile, Dr. Hayes used the viral attention for good. In a live interview, he said, "I don't hold anger toward her. Ignorance is taught, and kindness can unteach it. We can only rise above hate by refusing to mirror it." His calm words struck a chord worldwide. Thousands thanked him for his grace and dignity. As for Linda, she sat in a holding cell, trembling, realizing that the world had seen her true self. Her arrogance had finally caught up to her, and this time, no amount of money or excuses could save her. The news of Linda Parker's arrest spread like wildfire. Within hours, her company received countless calls, her social media exploded, and her once polished reputation shattered overnight. For years, she had been the proud vice president of a prestigious marketing firm, but by Tuesday morning, she was out of a job. Her employer released a brief public statement, "We do not tolerate discrimination in any form. The views and behavior of Ms. Parker do not reflect our company values." Linda sat on the edge of her bed in silence. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages, some angry, some mocking, some even threatening. She deleted her accounts and stared at herself in the mirror. The confident, respected woman she once believed herself to be was gone. For the first time, she felt small. A few weeks later, she was required to attend a court-ordered diversity awareness program as part of her probation. She dreaded it, assuming it would be a room full of lectures and judgment, but when she arrived, sitting at the front of the class was none other than Dr. Marcus Hayes, the same man she had refused to sit beside on that flight. Her heart dropped. She wanted to disappear. He looked at her calmly, showing no anger, just quiet strength. "Welcome, everyone," he began. We're not here to shame anyone. We're here to learn what makes us human and what makes us change. Linda couldn't meet his eyes. Throughout the session, he spoke about empathy, perspective, and the invisible damage caused by prejudice. He shared stories of people who had been judged unfairly, and others who had chosen to grow past their ignorance. Halfway through, he paused and said, "Sometimes, the person we need to forgive most isn't someone else, it's ourselves, for who we used to be." Something inside Linda broke. For the first time, she cried. Not the proud, defensive tears she used to hide behind, but real, silent tears of shame and realization. After the session, Linda approached Dr. Hayes nervously. "Dr. Hayes," she said, her voice trembling, "I owe you an apology more than words can cover. I was cruel. I was ignorant. And I'm so sorry." He nodded slowly, then extended his hand. "I accept your apology. What matters is what you do after today." Linda hesitated before shaking his hand. "How do I fix what I've done?" He smiled gently. "You start by helping someone who looks nothing like you, and expecting nothing in return." In the months that followed, Linda began volunteering at a local youth center that helped underprivileged kids prepare for college. Many of the children were Black, Latino, or immigrants, groups she once viewed with quiet disdain. At first, the kids didn't trust her. They'd seen the viral video too. But slowly, her actions began to speak louder than her past. She helped them write resumes, find scholarships, and practice for interviews. One day, a teenage girl named Amara said to her, "Miss Parker, I saw your video. You were mean before." Linda's heart skipped a beat. "Yes," she admitted softly. "I was. But I'm trying to be better now." Amara smiled shyly. "You are better. People can change. My mom says even broken clocks can be right twice a day." They both laughed, a small but powerful moment of healing. A year later, Linda was invited to speak at a community event about personal transformation and social awareness. Nervous but determined, she walked up to the podium. "Last year," she began, "I was the woman in that viral video, the one who refused to sit beside a man because of his skin color. I thought I was standing for my comfort, but I was really standing for my ignorance." She looked out at the crowd. Among them, Dr. Hayes sat with a proud, knowing smile. "That moment ruined my life," she continued. "But it also saved me. It forced me to face who I really was, and who I could still become." When she finished, the audience gave her a standing ovation. Not because she was perfect, but because she had chosen humility over hate. Months later, Dr. Hayes published a new book titled The Seat Beside Me, Stories of Unexpected Grace. One chapter told the story of a woman named Linda who had found redemption through the very man she once disrespected, and at the book's dedication page, he wrote, "For those who learn late but still learn, the world still has a seat for you." 2 years had passed since that fateful flight, the day Linda Parker's arrogance had destroyed her reputation and, unexpectedly, rebuilt her soul. She was no longer the cold, judgmental woman she once was. Now, she worked full-time at the youth center, mentoring young people from all walks of life. Every morning, she'd arrive early, unlocking the doors with a quiet smile, grateful for the chance to do something good. But one afternoon, life would test whether she had truly changed. Linda was traveling again, her first flight in nearly 2 years. She was flying from Atlanta to Chicago to attend a diversity conference, where she had been invited to share her story of redemption. She felt nervous but hopeful as she approached her seat, 22C. She arrived. She noticed a young Black woman sitting in 22B, wearing headphones, reading a novel, minding her own business. Across the aisle, a middle-aged white man glared at the girl. As Linda sat down, she overheard him mutter loudly, "Figures. Always them taking up space. Can't even get a quiet flight anymore." The young woman froze, pretending not to hear. But Linda saw her eyes glisten slightly behind her glasses. A sharp memory hit Linda. The same disgusted look she once gave Marcus Hayes, the same hateful words she once spoke. Her chest tightened. She turned to the man. "Excuse me," she said, her voice calm but firm. He frowned. "What?" "I heard what you said," she replied, locking eyes with him. "And I need you to know that's not acceptable, not here, not anywhere." He scoffed. "Mind your own business, lady. I was just talking." "You weren't talking," Linda said. "You were trying to make someone feel small. I used to do that too, and it cost me everything." Now the passengers nearby were watching. The young woman slowly took off her headphones, staring in disbelief as Linda continued. "Let me save you from making the same mistake I did," she said softly but firmly. "Hate doesn't make you strong, it makes you hollow. And the world's watching, even when you think it isn't." The man looked around, realizing everyone's eyes were on him. His face reddened. He muttered something under his breath and turned toward the window, silent for the rest of the flight. When the plane landed, the young woman turned to Linda. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You didn't have to do that." Linda smiled warmly. Yes, I did. Someone once showed me the same kindness when I didn't deserve it. Now it's my turn. The woman's eyes softened. You remind me of someone my mom used to talk about, a motivational speaker named Marcus Hayes. He changed her life. Linda laughed gently. He changed mine too. They exchanged smiles before parting ways, but fate wasn't done with Linda just yet. A few days later, at the Chicago conference, Linda was preparing backstage for her talk. She scanned the list of speakers and froze when she saw the name right before hers, Dr. Marcus J. Hayes. Her heart swelled with emotion. When he finished his speech, she walked on stage to join him briefly for the closing panel. The audience erupted in applause. The woman who once refused to sit beside him now stood beside him, proudly. As a partner in change, Marcus smiled at her. You did well, Linda, he said quietly. You've come full circle. She replied, voice trembling, I just stood up for someone today, Marcus. The way you once stood up for me, by doing nothing but showing grace. He nodded. That's how the world changes, one person choosing courage over comfort. The crowd rose to its feet. Cameras flashed. Two people, once strangers divided by prejudice, now shared a stage, united by redemption. Months later, a video went viral again, but this time, it wasn't of hate. A passenger had filmed Linda standing up for the young woman on the plane. The caption read, "This is how you use a second chance." The comments were filled with praise, and even Dr. Hayes reposted it, writing, "The woman who once refused to sit beside me now stands for what's right." That's the kind of transformation the world needs. Linda's journey had come full circle. She had once been the problem, now she had become part of the solution. 3 years had passed since the day Linda Parker's name first trended for all the wrong reasons. 3 years since she'd been handcuffed, humiliated, and forced to face the ugly truth about herself. Now, she was no longer that woman on the plane. She was something else, a symbol of change. After her viral act of courage defending a young black woman, Linda received an unexpected call from Dr. Marcus Hayes himself. Linda, he said, it's time we turn this moment into a movement. And that's exactly what they did. Together, they launched Seat Beside Me, a global initiative dedicated to promoting empathy, anti-discrimination education, and workplace inclusion. The name came from the story that started it all, a seat, a misunderstanding, and a lesson that changed 2 lives. Their first major conference took place in New York City, in the same city where Linda had once walked off a plane in handcuffs. This time, she walked onto a stage in front of thousands. Behind her, a massive banner read, "Change begins when you sit beside those you once ignored." Linda took a deep breath before speaking. Years ago, I refused to sit beside a man because of the color of his skin, she began. Today, I travel the world beside him, because he chose forgiveness instead of hate. The audience rose to their feet in applause, but Marcus wasn't watching the crowd. He was watching Linda, proud and humbled by how far she had come, but with fame came criticism. Not everyone believed in redemption. Some activists argued that Linda didn't deserve a platform. They said she was only forgiven because of privilege. A viral post on social media read, "Why do we celebrate people who were once racist instead of those who always did right?" The movement began to divide. Reporters questioned Marcus's judgment in partnering with her. One night, after a particularly harsh article, Linda sat in her hotel room, tears silently falling. "Maybe they're right," she whispered over the phone to Marcus. "Maybe I shouldn't be the face of this. Maybe I'll always be the woman who refused that seat." There was a long silence. Then Marcus said softly, "You can't erase your past, Linda. But you can prove every day that you're not her anymore. Let them talk, we'll keep working." A month later, Seat Beside Me held an event in Texas. During a Q&A session, a man in the audience stood up. He looked angry. "My brother lost his job because of people like you," he snapped. "These diversity programs, they're tearing this country apart." Security started moving toward him, but Linda raised her hand. "It's okay," she said calmly. She walked toward him, microphone in hand. "I used to think like you," she admitted. "I thought people who looked different or lived differently were taking something from me. But the truth is, I was the one taking from them. I took their peace, their dignity, their chance to just exist without judgment." The room went silent, then she added, her voice trembling but steady, "You don't have to agree with me today. Just promise me one thing, when you meet someone who challenges your beliefs, don't shut the door. Sit beside them. Listen." That's how I changed. The man didn't respond. He just nodded slightly, sat back down, and crossed his arms, but not in defiance this time. In thought. Months later, Linda received a letter at the foundation's office. It was from that same man. It read, "I don't know if you remember me, but I was the guy who shouted at you in Texas. I've been thinking about what you said. Last week, I sat beside a Muslim coworker I never talked to before. We had lunch. Turns out, he's not so different from me. Thank you for giving me that push." Linda smiled through tears. She forwarded the message to Marcus with just one line, "The movement is working." Years later, Seat Beside Me became a global symbol of unity. Schools adopted its curriculum, companies sponsored workshops, and governments invited Marcus and Linda to speak at international forums. But the most powerful moment came when a major airline announced a special campaign in their honor. Every seat tells a story. Choose kindness beside you. On the side of one of their planes, the airline printed the words "Seat Beside Me," inspired by Dr. Marcus Hayes and Linda Parker. As Linda stood at the unveiling ceremony, she turned to Marcus and whispered, "I never thought my greatest mistake would become my greatest purpose." He smiled. That's the power of grace. They stood side by side, not as strangers divided by prejudice, but as partners united by purpose. 10 years had passed since that infamous flight, the moment that tore Linda Parker's old life apart and gave birth to a new one. The world had changed, and so had she. Her organization, Seat Beside Me, now operated in over 30 countries, spreading a message of empathy, forgiveness, and unity. She and Dr. Marcus Hayes had spoken at universities, prisons, and parliaments. They had helped thousands unlearn hate and rebuild understanding where walls once stood, but even the strongest hearts are tested, and Linda's greatest test was about to begin. A wave of racial tension had erupted overseas. In a small European city, violent protests had broken out after a local immigrant was falsely accused of a crime. The streets were filled with anger, people throwing stones, shouting slurs, and setting fires. Seat Beside Me was invited by the United Nations to lead a peace dialogue between the opposing groups. Marcus wanted to go personally, but Linda insisted on taking the lead this time. "I need to do this," she told him. "People need to hear from someone who's been on both sides of hate." Marcus looked hesitant. "It's dangerous, Linda. This isn't just words, it's chaos." She smiled softly. "I used to be chaos. Now I want to bring peace." He sighed, then nodded. "Then go. But promise me one thing, come back." When Linda arrived, the city looked like a war zone. Graffiti covered the walls. Police in riot gear lined the streets. Groups of angry citizens shouted at refugees camped near the city square. Linda was escorted to a community hall where both sides had reluctantly agreed to meet. Inside were 20 people, divided by hate, suspicion, and fear. As she walked to the podium, murmurs filled the room. "That's her," someone whispered. "The racist woman who changed." Linda took a deep breath. "Yes," she said, her voice echoing through the tense silence. "That's me. And maybe that's why I'm the right person to be here." She began to speak about her journey, the shame, the arrest, the forgiveness, the long road back. "People ask me if change is real," she said. "I tell them yes, but it isn't easy. Change doesn't erase what you were, it redefines what you'll be remembered for." A man from the angry crowd interrupted her. "You don't know what it's like here. These people are destroying our way of life." Linda stepped forward. "You're right, I don't live here. But I know what it's like to hate someone without truly knowing them. And I know what it's like to regret it every single day." The man glared at her, then slowly looked down. His hands trembled. Suddenly, shouting erupted outside. The protests had moved toward the building. Someone threw a rock through the window. People screamed and ducked for cover. Linda rushed to the door, ignoring security's warnings. She saw two groups charging toward each other, fists raised, anger blazing. Without thinking, she ran into the middle of the street. "Stop," she shouted. "Stop this right now." But no one listened. A tear gas canister landed near her feet. The air filled with smoke. Through the chaos, she saw a young refugee boy, no older than 10, crying beside an overturned cart. Without hesitation, Linda ran to him, shielding him with her body as police advanced. A flash of cameras caught that image, the woman who once refused to sit beside a black man, now kneeling in the smoke, protecting a refugee child with her arms spread wide. When the riots finally ended, the photo went viral around the world. People called it the woman who stood between hate and hope. Linda was hospitalized for smoke inhalation, but the boy she saved was safe, and when she woke up, Marcus was there, sitting beside her bed. "You just can't stay out of trouble, can you?" he said softly, smiling through tears. She laughed weakly. "I guess I finally sat in the right seat." Marcus squeezed her hand. "You didn't just sit, Linda. You stood for what's right." Months later, the photo of Linda and the boy won an international humanitarian award. Governments began using it as a symbol of peace, and Seat Beside Me expanded its programs into conflict zones worldwide. When Linda returned to the stage for the first time after recovering, she looked out at thousands of faces, people of every color, religion, and background, and said, "Years ago, I refused to share a seat with someone different from me. Today, I would give my life to protect anyone beside me." That's what true change looks like. The crowd erupted into applause, tears streaming down faces, not for a hero, but for a human being who had chosen humility over hatred. A few years later, a statue was unveiled at the Atlanta International Airport, the place where it all began. It depicted two empty airplane seats, side by side. On the plaque beneath, the inscription read, "This is where understanding begins." Sit beside someone and listen. Dedicated to Dr. Marcus Hayes and Linda Parker, travelers stopped every day to read it, reflect, and sometimes even sit for a while beside a stranger. The woman who once divided a plane had, in the end, helped unite the world, one seed at a time.